I'm Wanda Pierce, former Executive Director of the Arlington Community Foundation. John Milliken is a treasure to the community. He has been a lifelong Arlingtonian. He has done so much in the areas of affordable housing, helping those who need help the most. And John is a lawyer who, could live a very comfortable life and golf and do things like that, but instead he's decided to also give back to the community. And what he's done for Arlington has been spectacular. He has been in county government, on the county board. He's been on numerous nonprofit organizations, especially in the area of affordable housing. He really gives back, and it couldn't have been a better choice for the spirit of community, because that's what John's all about, community and helping those who need help most. And he is so well deserving of the William T. Newman Jr. Spirit of Community Award.
I'm David Briggs. I am treasurer of the foundation and been a trustee for 8.5 years. I'm here at the Spirit of Community Award luncheon recognizing John Milliken. John has been an incredible resource for the Arlington community in his multiple roles as member of the county board, State Secretary of Transportation, and his other volunteer efforts in support of the Arlington community. He is well deserving of the Spirit of Community Award, which for the foundation recognizes the importance of one or two individuals in the community that have really meant a lot to make Arlington the community it is.
My name is Avril Ussery-Sisk, and I am one of the co-chairs of this afternoon's event. I'm delighted to be part of this honor for John, and more broadly for Chris and the whole family, for everything John has done for this community. I'm on the Board of Trustees. I'm the vice chair, and we were so delighted to be able to select him this year. He is an eminent person in the Arlington community and beyond, and we're just grateful for his service for many, many years, and look forward to this wonderful afternoon where he is getting the kudos that are rightly coming his way. Thank you so much for the chance to wish him well.
John, on behalf of all the Connollys, we just want to say congratulations for an award that is so well deserved. Thank you for your decades and decades of helping make Arlington and the state and the country a much better place for all of us. Thanks.
Thanks to everyone today for coming to this very, very special event. The Arlington Community Foundation deeply appreciates your tremendous support today and for always, and for your show of support for John Milliken. The Spirit of Community Luncheon is in its 24th year, I believe, and is a very special event where we honor one of the community's exemplary citizens. Look around you, and you see a remarkable gathering of Arlington's best and brightest and most committed people. I'd match this group against any other like group in the country. I think we should give ourselves a big round of applause. We live, and many of us work in Arlington because we love Arlington. We love our families. We love our friends, our jobs, our proximity to the nation's capital most of the time, the best all-season county in the country, and diverse neighborhoods that really appreciate each other. I have lived in Arlington my entire life, except for the 8 years in Boston and New York, where I had to satisfy my liberal cravings. As many of you older Arlingtonians would know, I wasn't going to get that craving satisfied here in that time. But when I moved back to Arlington in 1977, I knew I was home, happy to be with my family again, and to live my life here and be involved here. Like any community, Arlington is not without its problems, and without those of all ages in need. I'm proud to be associated with the Arlington Community Foundation, which has been a part of helping those in need for 26 years and has many more exciting years to come. The Arlington Foundation manages over $17 million through 800 donors who all have the interest of the community and giving in their hearts. We administer the largest scholarship program in our county, giving this year alone over 200 students $500,000 in scholarships. We all know that affordable housing is near and dear to John's heart, and many of you in this room. Supporting affordable housing is critical to the Foundation's mission as well. Our Homelessness Prevention Fund supports many community organizations offering housing for our most vulnerable neighbors. And Foundation staff continue to be active participants in the county's 10-year plan to end homelessness. Our nonprofit center is leading over 20 nonprofits who are working with Arlington County in the Bridges Out of Poverty initiative, which aims to improve the way we as a community meet the housing, health, food, and employment needs of low-income Arlingtonians. And we couldn't do it without our donors and supporters helping us provide grants to those organizations that can help address those needs. Now, in your program, we've listed two very important grant programs that we administer. One is the Fund for Arlington and the Community Scholarship Fund, and we hope you will take time to look at that and consider seriously donating to these two funds, or one of these funds. These are the funds that we can really be most active with in getting them out to do what the community needs done most. But today is John's Day. The Foundation is thrilled to be honoring one of Arlington's most outstanding leaders, John Milliken. As a special gift to John, you'll note that outside and also on the table, I think they're going to be putting it over here and there where you came in, are going to be some note cards. And we'd like you during lunch or when you're going to the bathroom to grab one of those cards and write a note to John. A special memory. It can be something from your law practice with him, something from one of your community events or activities with him. A good bar joke wouldn't be a bad idea. Anything that you want John to know about how much he means to you. Selecting our nominee and organizing this event takes a committed team of folks. Foundation staff and volunteers work tirelessly every year to make this event special. The Foundation's trustee vice chair, the Honorable Avril Sisk, and emeritus trustee Libby Ross are this year's co-chairs. And by the way, this is their second year of co-chairing this event, so that should tell you something about how much it means to them. We thank all those involved for their time and effort, and particularly Avril's and Libby's leadership. Avril and Libby, would you join me up here on the stage?
Good afternoon, everyone. We are honored to be the co-chairs of this great community event. It's been wonderful working with my co-chair, Libby Ross. Thank you so much.
And it's wonderful working with you and Jeannie and Vicki.
We have a room full of wonderful sponsors, elected officials, community leaders, and nonprofit leaders. It's a real mosaic of our community. First, I want to say thank you to all of our elected officials who are with us today. There are so many in the room that I ask that we introduce all of them, and then they can stand so that we can give them a round of applause. First, our keynote speaker, Congressman Don Beyer. From the Virginia Senate, Adam Eben and Barbara Favola. The House of Delegates representative here is Mark Levine. Our Commissioner of Revenue, Ingrid Maroy. Sheriff Beth Arthur. Our Clerk of the Court, Paul Ferguson. And from the County Board, Jay Fizette, Christian Dorsey, Katie Crystal. From our School Board, Barbara Cannonen and Tanya Talento. If we could please give them all a round of applause. want to acknowledge also that we have many other former elected officials who are here, and we wish to acknowledge them and thank them for coming as well. I want to start off by acknowledging our past recipients of the Spirit Award. Some of them who are here include Walter Tejada, Judy Connolly. Thank you. Please stand so we can acknowledge you. Karen Darner, Ralph Johnson, George Varoussos, Meg Tuchillo, John Andelin and Virginia Joffrey, Lola Reinsch, John Kinney, and for the remainder are listed in your program. Please let's acknowledge them at this time. We have had amazing support this year from our sponsors. A full list of them is within your program, but I'd like to highlight a few of them for your attention. First, a huge thank you to Venable as our presenting sponsor. This is a wonderful tribute to their former partner, John Milken. Our premier sponsor is JBG Smith. Our reception sponsor, AJ Dwoskin and Associates. Our platinum sponsors are David Briggs and John Benton and the Reinsch Pierce Family Foundation by Lola Reinsch. Thank you to everyone for your support of this event. The leadership of the Arlington Community Foundation is provided by very active and hardworking trustees, both those currently on the board and emeritus trustees. I ask that they all stand to be recognized at this time. At this time, I'd like to introduce the Reverend Andrew Merrow. He will be giving us our invocation this morning. I want to thank him especially for being here today. He just got off a plane from London, but did not want to miss this great event. Reverend Merrow has accepted the call to serve at St. Mary's as permanent rector effective March 5th, 1985. Under his leadership, St. Mary's has experienced a rapid growth and has a large number of active and devoted parishioners who are working together to carry out an exemplary Christian ministry, both within and outside the parish. St. Mary's is well known within the diocese, both through its clergy and lay leadership. Reverend Merrow has headed several prestigious diocesan committees. We are honored for him to join us today. Let's give him a warm welcome.
For those of you who know me, I'm given to irregular invocations. The good news is that I'm very brief. I am a little jet-lagged, so if I'm spacier than usual, those of you who know me will just say, well, that's just par for the course. But I'm very grateful to John in asking me to give this invocation because it has been a great honor to serve on the board of APA under his leadership, chairing the board, and I really do thank you. I am just back from a meeting of the Compass Rose Society of the Anglican Communion. For those of you who know, the Anglican Communion is the second largest group of Christians in the world behind the Roman Catholic Church. It's represented in 165 different countries. It's comprised of all sorts and conditions of the human family. I want to share with you what the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, shared with us. Because in a recent meeting of the primates, only the Brits would call heads of church primates, but that's another whole matter. As you know, there's enormous tension in our world, and the Anglican Communion experiences those same tensions. And he shared with us a remarkable story. He said that in a meeting of the primates just last month, that it just so happened that the head of the Church of Canada and the newly consecrated Archbishop of Sudan, Ezekiel Kondo, happened to be seated next to one another. Now, one of the tensions in the communion is around the issue of human sexuality. And Canada and Sudan could not be farther apart. Geographically, a wealthy country to one of the poorest countries on the face of the planet, and very divided over matters of human sexuality. But Justin told us that it just so happened that these two bishops were seated next to each other, and at the end of very difficult conversation, they were invited to wash one another's feet in an act of service and to pray for one another. And the Archbishop said what was astounding was that when these two men had finished, tears were streaming down their faces. Though divided, coming together in service one for another, their basic dignity as a human being was affirmed. Now, I would say that's on the global stage. We've had an election this week in the Commonwealth in which I would say that principle that we will respect the dignity of every human being was affirmed. I would say that is what we try to do here in Arlington County. And I would say that John Milliken is someone who tries to put that into practice every day. And I hope that you and I will serve one another, because there is but one human family. Amen.
We have a couple of people here today, not physically, but in spirit. And the first one is going to be Senator Tim Kaine.
Hi, this is Senator Tim Kaine, and I want to thank the Arlington Community Foundation for letting me say a few words about John Milliken this afternoon, because John is well deserving of this year's William T. Newman Jr. Spirit of Community Award. First, before I talk about John, let me just say to the Community Foundation, the work that you do in Arlington, the work that our community foundations do across the Commonwealth are critical. So much good service to people in need and to causes we care about are done because of the work of the foundation, and I encourage you to keep it going. And with John, you've picked a real winner. John spent his career working hard to make Arlington a welcoming place and a stronger community. And I've known John for about 15 years, and while he is always a reliable voice for anything that will help Virginia, he's got a special passion about his home community. He's helped provide affordable and safe housing for residents, improve transportation options in the city, and he's been proactive in engaging with community members about issues important to them, regardless of their seeming magnitude or if they're technical and wonky. If it's going to be good for Arlington, you can count on John to help you out. John embodies the spirit of community by tirelessly working to improve the quality of life in Arlington. I'm sure everybody in attendance can say that John has brought a thoughtful and creative approach to his career, and that served your county well. And it's helped make it one of the best places to live in Virginia and in America. So to John, congrats again, and here's to many more years of moving Arlington forward. I know I'll work with you on many other good projects, and I look forward to it. Thanks so much.
And now, Senator Mark Warner.
Hi, John. It's Mark Warner. And I want to congratulate you on receiving the Spirit of Community Award. You know, as a guy from Alexandria, it's always hard to talk about folks from Arlington. But in your case, the whole notion of the Arlington Way, I can't think of anybody in the community that more represents that ideal than John Milliken. Although obviously his wife, Chris, is also a strong advocate for those very special Arlington values. The truth is, for over 30 years, whether it's been in elected office or in community activities or helping me when I was governor, the great job you did on the transition, you've exemplified someone who has been always there on the front lines of the fight, whether that fight's for affordable housing, whether it's for more transit alternatives, whether it's working on transportation issues, or just making Arlington the incredibly special place. You clearly have helped make the community more vibrant and more livable for everyone. So it's no surprise that the Arlington Community Foundation has chosen you to embody the spirit of your community. It's truly an honor to have known you, worked with you, and I can't be prouder than calling you one of my great, great friends. So thanks again for all you've done for Arlington, for our Commonwealth, and our country. John, congratulations on this well-deserved recognition.
It is my privilege now to introduce Congressman Don Beyer of the 8th Congressional District, who represents Arlington. And I just want to ask somebody, anyone, I was talking to Mary Margaret, and we couldn't remember this date. Does anybody remember when we gained the 11th district? I can't believe this. Nobody remembers that? What year? Well, never mind, never mind. Prior to his election to Congress, and he served there now for 2 terms, Congressman Beyer was Virginia's lieutenant governor from 1990 to 1998, where his signature work included advocacy of Virginians with disabilities and ensuring protections for Virginia's most vulnerable population as the Commonwealth was in the middle of reforming its own welfare system. After leaving office, Representative Beyer spent 14 years as chair of Jobs for Virginia Graduates, a highly successful high school dropout prevention program. He was also active for a decade on the board of the DC campaign to prevent teenage pregnancy. As chair of the Virginia Economic Recovery Commission, he helped pass permanent pro-business reforms and was co-founder of the Northern Virginia Technology Council. Under President Obama, Congressman Beyer was also ambassador to Switzerland and Liechtenstein. And the list of his outstanding accomplishments continues. But today, the most important is his relationship with John Milliken. Ladies and gentlemen, I present Congressman Don Beyer.
I come not to bury Caesar, but to praise him. No. Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this celebration. I'm delighted to be here, especially because I have a long history and connection with community foundations. I served on the National Capital Area Community Foundation Board for 10 years, and then with David Speck and many others helped start the Alexandria Community Foundation. I was its first chair for 5 years. There were 5 or 6 women who did all the work, but they put me in front to chair it. And I really, really believe in your mission. But let me confess that in my first many years in the community foundation world, I had a really hard time explaining what community foundations did or what they were. I'd come home from a long board meeting and tell my wife all about it, and she'd be more confused at the end than I was at the beginning. And I had all of the internal slang down pat, the CCC. We were conveners, catalyzers, collaborators. But those were just fuzzy buzzwords, corporate doublespeak. And they really didn't mean anything to me. It was a lot easier just to say, hey, we take other people's money and we write the checks to charity when they tell us to. So donor-advised funds. Nice tax planning, you take the tax deduction now and you can spend the money over the years to come. But remember Archimedes in the bathtub? When he suddenly realized that the water displaced was exactly equal to the volume of his body, and he leaped out of the bathtub yelling, "Eureka, Eureka!" Somewhere along the way, I had my community foundation Eureka moment. So let me explain. Number 1, convene. A long time ago, I had a girlfriend who had a grandmother whose advice to her was you should accept every invitation. If it was legal and moral, you should go, because nothing happens at home. You don't remember the night you made lasagna or washed your hair. And I find that in the 84 high school graduation speeches I gave as lieutenant governor, they would invite the governor, he would never go, they'd send me the invitation. That was the only thing anyone ever remembered from the graduation speech, was you should accept every invitation. I often got it from parents who were hostile. But then I realized over time that there's a necessary symmetry, that if you should accept every invitation, you should also often be the inviter. And that in fact the world just totally works by invitation. And what the Community Foundation has done, what this one's done, for 26 plus years, is bring together the best, the brightest, the most engaged and committed Arlingtonians to help build our community. I mean, I didn't know how many people were going to be here today. And I just looked in and said, oh my God. You look at the thought, spiritual, education, business community leaders in this room and think about all the good things that will happen this afternoon because of that. When you put this much dry kindling together, even the smallest spark is going to start a conflagration. One concrete example, Arlington is only the second jurisdiction in the country to eliminate all military veteran homelessness. Basically, there will always be a home for every month. And by the way, I've also noticed that some of our best leaders are also our best conveners. We just had Mark Warner up there, and Mark is famous. He says he wasn't part of the Harvard Bar Review. He was part of some other, like the Boston Bar Review. They went to every bar in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And his famous parties at the farm and his bike trips. He says he'll be part of any group of 6 or 8 or 10 that'll have him. Or Tim Kaine, who has been organizing his neighborhood once a week or once every 2 weeks, every summer for years. They've canoed the entire James River. They'd hiked the whole Appalachian Trail in Virginia. They circumnavigated Mont Blanc on feet. These are great conveners, which is one of the reasons why they're senators. Catalyze, number 2. So catalysis is a chemical process, right? You put a couple chemicals together and sometimes you get an explosion. This is exactly what the Arlington Community Foundation has done when it brings its many, many voters to the most fruitful needs and projects in Arlington. And one fine example is the work that the Community Foundation has done with individuals with behavioral and developmental and intellectual disabilities, giving them training, finding them jobs, and giving them the support they need. Economics is the science of the allocation of scarce resources. And far too often, the resources in one place and the need is someplace very different. And the Arlington Community Foundation's great role as catalyst has been bringing these two together. You should think of yourself as the Bumble or the Tinder or the Match.com of the nonprofit world. You're supposed to be laughing at that, but that's right. You guys are too old for Bumble, I guess. Anyway. And number 3, collaborate. And this is straightforward because the Arlington Community Foundation uses its assets in direct partnership with over 75 nonprofits and with the Arlington County Schools. This year, local grants for curriculum enhancements, including environmental education for the day students and after-school creative problem solving for ESL students, and more than $500,000 for scholarships for Arlington high school kids. Now I understand, I think, but I certainly understand why the 2017 William T. Newman Jr. Spirit of the Community Award is going to go to my friend John. By the way, Bill, in Virginia, you can't name a highway after somebody till they're dead. So it's pretty cool that you're still here. So John Milliken, by the way, is the archetype of community spirit and community leadership. Most of you know his incredible biography, Loudoun County, Haverford College, Joe Fisher, Chief of Staff, Arlington County Board Chair, Secretary of Transportation, Virginia Port Authority, husband of Chris, father of Alex, and I'm barely scratching the surface of this incredible life of service to others. But let me use the CCC framework, because John's an exceptional convener. He has been bringing people together for good purposes for years and years, and has an absolute gift for inspiring friendship and loyalty in all he meets. In the 36 years I've known John Milliken, I've never known a single person to say an unkind word about him. It has always been just respect and honor. John Milliken's a catalyst. He makes things happen. He has saved the Virginia Port Authority 2 different times. And now we have the Silver Line to Dulles, and our transportation system is far different than it was in 1989. And John is a collaborator. You always want Mr. Milliken on your team because he will bring it wisdom, organization, focus, executive function, and a real sense of community purpose. There's one more thing I want to say about Secretary Milliken. I made the mistake of sending him a few of my novels, my favorite novels, a few weeks ago, only to receive a box that I needed a hand cart to get into my house of books that he sent last week. He lives and celebrates the life of the mind, and I suspect our democracy would be a lot stronger if a few more of our leaders actually read books. So let me leave you with just an L, the letter L, because Arlington is probably never known as long and strong and steadfast and selfless a leader as John Milliken. And I would be happy to wash your feet. Thank you very much.
So it's my great honor and privilege to introduce my dear friend, John Milliken, as the Spirit of Community Awardee for 2017. To tell you about his career in public service, the talents that make him successful, and the commitment he has to Arlington. But first, I'm just going to start with the basics. John Milliken and his wife, Chris, and his son, Alexander, live in South Arlington. It must be a pretty nice place, because whenever I call John and tell him that it's cold and damp in my house, he says, well, in South Arlington, it's always sunny and warm. It was clear early on that John was destined for public service. As a young man, he was chief of staff for Congressman Joe Fisher, president of the Young Democrats, and already on a county commission, the Fire Trial Board. John was elected to the Arlington County Board in 1980, re-elected twice, and served until 1990. He was a serious, thoughtful member of the board, always reading all the material. That's a good basic. Asking important questions, meeting with citizens, and explaining his decisions. Furthermore, he reached out to citizens. He convened a group of the chairs of all the Arlington County advisory boards and had them meet regularly with him to improve communication between and among the boards and commissions and with the county board. He was my colleague all those years, and I marveled at the way that he would resolve issues. He would basically tell the warring parties what the board's decision was likely to be, and then tell them to reach agreement on the outstanding issues. For example, he would say, neighborhood, the board is going to approve this development project, so you look at how you might be able to improve it. Then he would say, developer, we're heading toward approving this project, but you have to work with the neighbors to make it happen. Lo and behold, 2 weeks later, they would come back and like little lambs and report on all the agreements that they had reached. While he was on the county board, John was our representative to the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority Board, Metro, serving as chairman and hiring a general manager for the system. He did a stellar job of bringing the region together on the funding agreement for the next phase of the system, something that very few people seem to be able to manage. It was sad for us, proud of him as we were, when he left the county board to become Secretary of Transportation for the Commonwealth of Virginia as the appointee of Governor Doug Wilder. Our loss was the Commonwealth's gain, of course, as he distinguished himself in this very difficult job. Currently, John is, and has been for several years, chairman of the Virginia Port Authority. He was reappointed to the board last year, a position he will hold until 2022. And I cannot tell you what a huge responsibility this is. The port is now, I believe, the largest on the East Coast and a prime mover of Virginia's economy, thanks in large part to John's leadership. Maybe this is a good time to mention that John is one of the most connected people ever. His Rolodex is an item of envy, and he keeps in touch with people religiously, always thinking about whom he should be talking to about a particular issue. In fact, I'm pretty sure the telephone was invented for John Milliken. And when the cell phone came along, he couldn't have been happier, because now he could talk on the telephone wherever he went. On that Rolodex are governors and senators and congressmen from Virginia, and pretty much everyone who has a role to play in the state and in Northern Virginia. All people who value John's advice and judgment. Remember that all this time he was an active lawyer for more than 20 years with the Venable Law Firm. He was managing partner when Venable was recognized for its pro bono work, something that firm really encourages. He has been active with the Venable Foundation as well. John's very intentional about what he does, thinking through how to accomplish a goal. He's productive. He's the one who told me to handle a piece of paper only once. I failed dismally, but I think he does it. And he inspires the loyalty of others. Of course, it's not all work. When he posts a picture on Facebook, it's nearly always from a baseball game. And he's traveled all over the country to attend his games from his favorite teams. And I think he works in some golf as well. Much as he has done for the Commonwealth, his heart has remained in Arlington. John's been active in Arlington's nonprofit community, particularly in issues related to housing. He's currently chair of the Arlington Partnership for Affordable Housing. And lots of housing folks nominated him for this award. And most recently, he has taken a leading role in helping the county implement the Affordable Housing Master Plan. I was really impressed when he agreed, after his retirement from Venable, to take on the chairmanship of the Community Facilities Study. Now that could have been a truly thankless job. But due to John's leadership, the group came up with a widely acclaimed report that had lots of community input and set the stage for decisions in the future. He's a true example of a committed Arlingtonian, willing to devote his time and considerable talents to making this community a better place. As it says in the nomination, Mr. Milliken brings to every challenge a formidable combination of wisdom, judgment, community-centered values, and a resolute commitment to work together for the best possible outcomes of all. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the 2017 William T. Newman Jr. Spirit of Community honoree, John Milliken.
Today it's my great honor to present this award to a good friend and one of my old colleagues from the county board. We were laughing because we were saying with the three of us here, we all served together, we would have had the quorum to cast to anything that we wanted to in Arlington. But it is a great honor for me to present the award today. And the award reads, the Arlington Community Foundation, John G. Milliken, 2017 honoree of the William T. Newman Spirit of Community Award, sponsored by the Arlington Community Foundation. John G. Milliken epitomizes the best of community, leadership, and philanthropy. Mr. Milliken has worked tirelessly to make Arlington a community that values people and provides opportunities for affordable housing, critical transit alternatives, a responsible environmental focus, and community dialogue on present issues and future improvements. He has made an outsized impact on Arlington and on our region. In recognition of John G. Milliken's selfless dedication to volunteerism, philanthropy, and community in Arlington, the Arlington Community Foundation honors him with the 2017 William T. Newman Jr. Spirit of Community Award, November 9, 2017.
It's hard to know quite what to say at a time like this. Thank you. I can't begin to tell you how appreciative I am, how grateful I am for your being here today and for this award. I'm particularly thankful to my friend Bill Newman. As he said, we served together on the county board. Importantly, and you probably know this, Community Foundation was his vision. It was Bill Newman who, during his tenure on the board as chair, thought one of the things Arlington didn't have but needed to express its community feeling was such a foundation. And he and I sat, along with others, including Doug Wilder, around a table at the old Gannett Foundation headquarters in Arlington when the plan was laid out as Bill had conceived it, and the Community Foundation was born. So we all owe him. Thank you, Bill. To Mary Margaret, Mary Margaret didn't say one really important thing. She said a lot of things that were, over-dramatized and overblown about me. But one of the reasons that I survived so successfully for 10 years on the county board is every year when a new chair came in and we rejuggled who sat next to whom, I said, I want to sit next to Mary Margaret. I don't care where she's sitting, I want to be next to her, because she was a guide and a mentor and an inspiration all during my service on the board. And she, of course, served this community in many ways, both on the board and in the state senate and in other ways ever since that time. Thank you, Mayor Margaret. And for my friend Don Beyer, Don Beyer's been many things to me, including the dealership from which the family bought some cars. But now every single morning, I can wake up being proud to be represented in Congress by Don Beyer. To the chair and co-chairs and the leadership of the Community Foundation, to Vicki Kirkbride, who stepped in to do a lot of the preparation for this event, I can't begin to tell you how appreciative I am of this honor and what it means to me, because it's what Arlington means to me. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what Arlington means to me. The Arlington I moved to when I was 14 in the summer of 1960 wasn't today's Arlington, but a lot of the essentials of today's Arlington were already recognizable, not to a 14-year-old, but were recognizable. My family moved to Buckingham. Like a lot of families who came through Buckingham or Colonial Village or Fairlington or Arlington Village or Barcroft, that was where your starter housing was. And my family moved into Buckingham and rented a 2-bedroom house there. My world as a 14-year-old was bounded on the north by Washington and Lee, where I became a sophomore, and on the south by the Dominion Arms, by the swimming pool at Dominion Arms, where I got my life-saving merit badge. Most of that first summer, however, I spent at the putt-putt on Wilson Boulevard. And that was time pretty well spent, because to this day, putting is the only part of my game that's worth a damn. That fall, I had my first big political test, and I failed. I was for Nixon rather than Kennedy. I don't know why, some youthful indiscretion. My ticket out, however, to faraway lands, living in Buckingham, was the number 4 bus on Wilson Boulevard. And I would tell my parents I was going to take the bus and go down to Woodard & Lothrop's, a store many of you may not even know about. Woodard & Lothrop's in downtown D.C. But really, I got off in Roslyn, Marvin Weisberg. I got off in Roslyn, an exotic place. It had a lumber yard. It had a hardware store. And most exciting to a 14-year-old, it had a pawn shop. It was heaven just to walk around there. And that was my escape. But the next year, my dad was actually transferred, and I finished high school in Europe, speaking of escape to faraway lands, and came back at the end of high school, and the family moved back into Buckingham, and with time out for college and law school, I've been in Arlington more or less ever since. And you ask yourself what it is that attracted me and kept me here for more than 50 years, 33 of which were in the same South Arlington house that Mary Margaret made reference to. Life's major moments happened here. Chris and I were married here in Arlington. Our son started school here and is still in school in Arlington, happily, and at Marymount. But originally, even before I met Chris, it was the people I met and got to know as friends in the community and in local politics. It was the early 1970s, and it was a group of friends that became very active in the community and in Arlington politics, and those relationships were and are very special because many of them continue to today, and a lot of those folks are here with us today. In those early years, I came to understand that Arlington was a special, if not a unique, place with a stable local government stretching over decades. And it's worth exploring just for a few minutes what it was and is that makes the Arlington community and its local government as special as it is. What is it that we need to be careful to hang on to as Arlington continues to change and evolve, which it naturally will? The roots of that uniqueness were already here when I got here in 1960. The county population right before the war had been 57,000 people. In 1960, basically 15, 18 years later, it was 160,000. It had tripled as a result of the influx of population in the New Deal and wartime. That population was largely comprised of government employees or people who worked for or around government. They had reasonably good salaries, they were well educated, they had good retirement programs, and they had the time and the inclination to take part in the community. And most uniquely, they were comfortable with the functioning of government. Participation on the local level was a natural outgrowth of what they did in their day jobs. If they worked for the Bureau of the Budget during the day, dealing with the county's budget in an evening session wasn't particularly mysterious to them, and they were eager and willing to do it. For many who had moved to Arlington during that period of the New Deal and World War II, government was supposed to be something that helped people. With that mindset, they settled here, they had kids, and they expected their local government to address their needs, especially in the local schools. And in fact, they wrested control of the local school board from the state and the appointive powers in those days. And although the original elected school board didn't survive for very long in the 1950s, it set a standard for civic participation. They defied massive resistance and slowly, too slowly sometimes, moved the county in the direction of becoming the welcoming community that it is today. And in their Arlington County manager form of government, they'd found a local government they could trust and on which they could have some impact. So as the 50s gave way to the 60s and the early 70s, some very far-sighted people made fundamental decisions about the future of Arlington. The Joe Fishers, the Joe Holeys, the Ellen Bosmans, the Ev Muncies. They saw Arlington as a part of the core of a flourishing and growing national capital region, and they designed the metro system and the land use plan to serve it with that in mind, and they created the modern Arlington. And in that process, they fostered a governmental decision-making process that continues through today. The phrase, the Arlington Way, didn't emerge until Mary Margaret got there in the 1980s, but its principles existed long before they were given a label. Part of the reason for that is the fact that our local government elections are at large. And in fact, all at the same time, the community makes a decision on a single set of people and the direction that they're espousing for the community. And everyone in the community faces the same set of choices and candidates. And this has a unifying effect, even in those years when perhaps the atmosphere is a little bit negative and the unifying effect is for some change from what has been in the past. And we have a local election every single year. That's exhausting to the people who take part in the elections and perhaps to the electorate as well, but to the enormous benefit of the community. It means that unhappiness with local government has an outlet every single year and doesn't have to wait and build up over a 4-year period. And it also means that changes are incremental and that the passion of the moment can't throw all the bums out at once, which has been a recurring problem in some other Virginia jurisdictions. Experience tells us that those who are not on the ballot do in fact listen to the returns of those that are affected by the ballot in a given year and act accordingly. Lastly, this process, this thing that was set up back when, takes time, takes a lot of time sometimes to figure an issue out, often to the point of exhaustion. And we open the table to everyone, which is one of the reasons it becomes so exhausting. But the process requires an informed and active community. And by that, I don't mean only in the formal governmental decision-making process, because often what is happening in Arlington that is good for the future is happening in its volunteer and business communities, sometimes in partnership with local government, but sometimes pushing local government in a direction that it might not otherwise be going. The nonprofit and civic business communities play a singular role in the Arlington process. Nonprofits evolve and new ones emerge to meet changing needs, often way ahead of government. They are the harbingers. Sometimes they are the canaries of what is to come. And as business thrives, jobs are created and local revenues grow, but business organizations too have to evolve with the changing business landscape. They must, for example, adjust to the reality of a growing national and international business presence in Arlington, different from what was the case in the decades before now, but no less important. In short, I guess we wouldn't be the community we are without the Arlington Food Assistance Center, the Arlington Free Clinic, the Arlington Chamber of Commerce, the Arlington Partnership for Affordable Housing, the Arlington Civic Federation, the Arlington Community Foundation, and that's just the A's. These provide a vitality and outlets for people to express themselves about the direction for their community. So what are the key elements of Arlington's success? Small size, a professional governmental structure, and annual at-large elections. That sets the table. But it only works if government keeps the door open and business and nonprofit communities participate actively. I've had the opportunity to do a lot of participating in Arlington, and for that I am eternally grateful, and for that I hope I am a better person. Arlington is a very special place, and you and the organizations that you're with are what makes it so. I appreciate being here today and this honor. Thank you.